Today I came across a hilarious video featuring someone from the Weather Channel. I won't talk about who they are quite yet. I want you to hear that and see that in the video I'm about to play for you in a little bit here. But I thought it was a hilarious video. It was a great video. It debunks a lot of this whole climate change, global warming, global cooling, whatever they want to call it right now. It debunks a lot of that in very succinct and sound and strong fashion. So I don't want to talk too much before the actual video. What I want to do right now is go ahead and roll it. You'll see what I'm talking about. You'll hear what I'm talking about. And I want to break down what was said afterwards and also give you a little bit of my point of view. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
A story you will see nowhere else this morning. It's about one of the biggest crises we face, climate change, and a media war over that crisis. Climate deniers, people who believe climate change is not happening in any meaningful way, are sometimes painted in the media as fringe characters, as kooks. So this might shock you. A man who co-founded the Weather Channel thinks climate change is a hoax. His name is John Coleman.
It's nice to be on CNN. Hello to all your viewers. I resent you calling me a denier. That is a word meant to put me down. I'm a skeptic about climate change. And I want to make it darn clear, Mr. Kenny's not a scientist. I am. He's the CEO of the Weather Channel now. I was the founder of the Weather Channel, not the co-founder.
Yep. And I'm glad you did, because I am addicted to the Weather Channel. I watch a lot of cable news.
Now, hold on just a minute. I'm not done. And CNN has taken a very strong position on global warming that it is a consensus. Well, there is no consensus in science. Science isn't a vote. Science is about facts.
Yep.
And if you get down to the hard, cold facts, there's no question about it. Climate change is not happening. There is no significant man-made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there's no reason to expect any in the future. There's a whole lot of baloney. And yes, it has become a big political point of the Democratic Party and part of their platform. And I regret it's become political instead of scientific. But the science is on my side.
I don't think we're going to come to a conclusion about the topic right here. What I do wonder, though, is when you see
because you wouldn't allow it to happen on CNN.
Nope.
But I'm happy that I got on the air and got a chance to talk to your viewers. Hello, everybody. There is no global warming.
What I do wonder is when you see the government, when you see NASA, when you see other institutions say that 97% of climate scientists agree, do you think they're making it up? What I don't understand is how you square that.
Well, that's a manipulated figure, and let me explain it to you. The government puts out about $2.5 billion directly for climate research every year. It only gives that money to scientists who will produce scientific results that support the global warming hypothesis of the Democrat Party position.
Yep.
So they don't have any choice. If you're going to get the money, you got to support their position. Therefore, 97% of the scientific reports published support global warming. Why? Because those are the ones the government pays for, and that's where the money is.
Correct.
It's real simple. But that doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't make it true. That only makes it bought and paid for. The money goes in circles.
I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to try to refute you on the facts.
That's the truth.
I'll simply say that the vast majority...
Please stand back from this issue and let the two sides be on the air. There are 31,000 scientists who have signed a petition that says it is not valid, that my position is correct.
Yep.
And we'll keep battling, and we will prevail in time, but I don't know if we'll do it in my lifetime.
I do hope viewers are Googling the data you're sharing, because I do think it's skewed. I have to say that. I want to ask you about the weather.
No, it's not true, and I hope you will go to the websites that present the papers that show that none of this alarmism about ice and heat waves and droughts, none of it is happening.
Well, there you have it, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from the actual founder of the Weather Channel. And I like how you pointed that out, because you saw on the lower third there, which I pointed out with a little bit of a sound effect and an arrow, it had him labeled as the co-founder of the Weather Channel. It seems like CNN was trying to downplay him. They were trying to make his importance be less important, right? Is a co-founder. Oh, he wasn't really the top guy, but he was the actual founder of the Weather Channel, and the CEO of the Weather Channel right now is an employee. It's much different than someone who starts a company, but I digress. Now, what he said during this talk was magnificent. I like how he was able to be so strong against the actual reporter from CNN And I think you're going to see a lot more of this as time progresses, because a lot of the mainstream media, the so-called air quotes here, progressive media, a lot of what they try to do, they try to push their narrative as being the only narrative. And then they try to disrespect anyone else that has something else to say, even if that means that they must lie and make up things. You know, CNN has been caught before falsifying things, falsifying events, making up stuff. I did a video about that where Carol Costello had to apologize because she made up some things about what happened in a particular story. I'll link to that in the box below. But this is becoming the MO of CNN, NBC, MSNBC, etc. They do a lot of these things. And I'm glad you have my man here, who was the actual founder of the Weather Channel, to call him out on it. Now, about global warming, what he's saying is 100% correct. I want to kind of start from the back and kind of work my way around, not really in order. What he said about the scientists, you know, the big number we always hear, 97% of scientists conclude that global warming is a real phenomenon and is man-made, it's anthropogenic or whatever it is. He told the correct thing here when he said that the government puts out, you know, whatever kind of billions of dollars towards climate research. And if you are not going to support the climate change theory as being correct, then you won't get funded. It's just that simple. Because think about it like this. How many times have you been job searching and you just see jobs for a scientist just in your paper or on Indeed.com or on Hot Jobs or something like that? You're not really going to see these jobs posted. A lot of it, if not all the jobs for scientists, come from the federal government. And in order for you to be able to get the job, you got to be able to support what they want. You see, that's how that works. So what he said about that was 100% correct. The people that were included in the study that came to that consensus of 97%, they were all funded by the government. It was a government study, essentially. To talk more about global warming, you have to understand science is not like what he said. It's not a vote. It's not something you could say, oh, okay, well, all scientists say this and that's the end of it. And then it can never be debunked. It can never be disproven. That's just what it is. No, science is all about facts, and you have to study to get to the facts, right? And as new technology presents itself, as new information comes along, you got to be able to change the way you think. You got to be able to change what you thought was the truth in science. That's just what it is. Because at one point in time, science told us that the earth was flat. Now, obviously, the earth is not flat, right? We know that now because we've advanced in science. We've gained new information. We've done studies. We've done research. We've gone up in space and we've seen the planet. We know it's not flat, right? So that's what that is. And beyond that, they said at one point Pluto was a planet. Now we're kind of waffling back and forth in science. Oh, maybe it's a planet. Maybe it's a planetary object. Maybe it's an asteroid, etc., etc. Some have said it's a moon of, I don't know, Jupiter, Saturn, one of the bigger planets. So the science is not, it's not a consensus. It's all about trying to study and figure out what's the best way to go forward. Now, as far as air quotes, climate change, you got to ask yourself this. How do we know that the climate is being controlled by man? How do we know that carbon emission is really changing the climate? They say, when I say they, I mean those that believe in climate change, they say, oh, it's the hottest year on record. Well, how far does record go back? You're talking about what, the 1800s? How long is that really when you're talking about the earth? A lot of these so-called scientists will also say that the earth is billions of years old. So how can you say that it's the hottest year on record and have that really mean anything when the earth is billions of years old and record only goes back maybe about 200 years? 200 years, when you're talking about billions of years, is a blink of an eye. It's nothing. So how can you really say that the hottest year on record denotes any kind of change in the climate that has been made by man? If anything, the climate is mostly changed or affected by the sun. That big giant fireball in the sky, that's what's going to change the climate, not some random yokel with his truck spewing out CO2. It does not make any sense. And then to talk about the Paris Accord right quick, I think that's probably where this is coming from. It's probably because of the Paris Accord and Donald Trump pulling out. So now they want to have a big debate about climate change. Now, about the Paris Accord, what was that really going to do? Man, you're going to pay some money to some random bureaucrat over in Europe to try and change the climate? How's that going to work? If we could change the climate, why must we pay some random bureaucrat who was not a scientist to change it? It does not make any sense. And also, a lot of it was just to pressure the U.S. into spending a bunch of money overseas in these air quotes green climate accounts. So I don't even know what that is. I'll link to the actual name of what these funds were in the comments below. I think it's the Green Climate Fund, something along those lines. The Clean Power Plan, all these things to give foreign aid to countries that already get aid from us. You're talking about millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars in aid every year to foreign countries to, air quotes, help them with their climate change kerfuffles. And my thing is this: we got starving veterans on the street right now, butt naked, homeless, nowhere to go, nothing to eat. How about we just focus on helping them out rather than trying to say, well, okay, we got to spend a bunch of money overseas to help them. I don't know, fix the climate, change the climate. It does not make any sense. The whole Paris Climate Accord, climate agreement, whatever it's called, is nothing but a money grab, nothing more, nothing less. Right. And you're talking about carbon emission and regulations in the United States. All that does is just offshore the pollution and the jobs. Right. Now, I'm not one to say that we should pollute the earth. That's totally different than climate change. And that's an argument that I always get met with when you're talking about people that believe in climate change. They say, oh, you must believe in pollution. You must think that we can pollute the rivers, the air, et cetera, the land that we have to grow food from. I'm like, no, I'm not a fan of pollution. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of people trying to say that there's climate change caused by man and carbon emission when there is no such evidence of that actually happening. Right. To protect the environment is one thing, but to say that man can change the weather by lowering the amount of CO2 in the air does not make any sense. Right. And shout out to Stick Sexy Hammer. He made a good point about if CO2 is the reason why climate change is happening, then deforestation must also be a reason, because the trees absorb the carbon, right? When you clear cut a forest and remove all the trees and don't grow them back, that's going to cause a lot of pollution in the air because the plants are not consuming the CO2. Therefore, it's left to the actual air to sit out there and for us to consume rather than the plants. And then it's very harmful to us. It's like smoke. It's like being in a giant fire and breathing in all the smoke, or smoking packs of cigarettes a day, like the way it is over in China. So I think that should be the focus if we're going to talk about climate change rather than just carbon emission. It's focused on carbon emission because it's all about money, because people know that if you're a business, if you are into manufacturing or something like that, carbon emission is part of your business. So you want to regulate that and tax that. It's all that it is. It's a tax on business. It's a tax on the common man. And also it's an excuse to offshore jobs and the so-called carbon emission to China and India, where they do not have such regulations on their, air quotes, carbon emission, right? And they're part of the Paris Climate Accord as well, but they negotiated a deal that does not really require them to do much. You know, they got a lot of solar panels in China, and the reason why is because they don't have access to petroleum the way we do over here, so they have to use those for energy sources, right? They rely a lot on coal, but they need other forms of energy, including oil, to be able to shore it up, but they don't have it, so they must use solar panels. That does not mean that they are an environmentally friendly country. I mean, they got the most polluted rivers, air, and land. It's only 6% arable land, meaning that only 6% of their land is suitable to farm. So when you're talking about climate change, when you're talking about pollution, why must it be focused on the United States? Why not the whole world? But I'm gonna move on from that. Now, my theory about so-called climate change, I think, is one that is a little odd, but at the same time, not really so odd. First of all, I don't believe the earth is so old as the way we think it is. I think that the earth is pretty young. I'm not necessarily a creationist, but I think that a lot of things that we talk about don't make a whole lot of sense. You're talking about evolution. That makes no sense. People say that the dinosaurs were around for millions of years. Well, why is it that we only find fossils occasionally? If you're talking about dinosaurs being around for millions of years, I mean, how long did the dinosaurs live? Were they like 1,000 years old each? Did they have 1,000-year lifespan? Because if they had a lifespan of an average lizard here on Earth, maybe even of a snapper turtle or something like that, like 100 years, then why do we only find fossils occasionally? And why do we find a lot of the same kind of fossils in the fossil record, in the air quotes fossil record? I think the giant flood made more sense. And I also believe that the Earth did not have any kind of Pangea at one point. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Pangea, I mean, you're talking about the Earth having a giant continental shelf atop of the ocean floor that's basically like a large island, and the whole 70% of the rest of the Earth was just covered in water. That does not make any sense. I mean, if you're talking about the Big Bang Theory and then the Earth forming into a sphere-like object, it does not make sense for like 30% of the Earth to be grouped together in one giant mountain, essentially, that's like 2 miles above the rest of the floor, and then the rest of that be covered in water. I mean, how did that actually form? When the Big Bang happened, Was it water just put on the earth right away, or did the water come as a result of trees growing and then rain coming from that, right? So you will have shallow seas due to indentations in the earth rather than 70% of the earth on one side grouped together being a big ocean. It does not make any sense. What happened was, in my opinion, was the rift in the earth, which you can see on the screen before you. The rift happened all at once, and it basically cracked the earth apart, right? At one point, the earth was smaller. The rift happened as the earth began to expand from the core and the interior. I mean, we all know that the sun expands, so why not have the super hot core in the center of the earth expand as well? Why can't the earth become bigger in mass, right? So from the center, the earth expands and the rift happens, and that's what created the flood because of the subterranean water coming up to the surface all at once. That's why you were able to explain how the fossil record is all basically fish and shells. And you can see at the rift where the ocean floor is younger than the floor that's further away from it, and it's all younger than the continental shelf. And when I say it's all younger, I mean the ocean floor. That is the newer land. Obviously, it was created after the continental shelf, and that's not according to me just being a skeptic of climate change or Pangea or evolution. That is me accepting science. I'm looking straight at the NOAA's map, right? They mapped the ocean floor and the continental shelf, and they gave it an age. So I'm looking at that. I think the smaller Earth theory, which means that the Earth expanded, makes more sense than Pangea. I think that creation makes more sense than evolution. I think that climate change is not something that is really caused by man. I think pollution is real. You can definitely see the effects of dumping toxic waste into a river. You can see the effects of having polluted air on your lungs and stuff like that. But to say that the carbon emission is what changes the Earth climate is something that I don't see a lot of evidence for. I think it's a big money scam from the Church of Al Gore and people like him of his ilk that are trying to get money out of it. It's all a big scam. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For me to believe it, I need to see much more evidence than I do. So that's pretty much all I got to say about it. What do you think? Do you think that climate change is real? If you think it's real, then give me your evidence, please. I want to see physical evidence. I'm not talking about the letters from the air quotes 97% of scientists, those that are funded by the government. I want to see physical, hardcore evidence, the way that the NOAA has provided evidence talking about the age of the ocean floor and the continental shelf. Give me some evidence like that, then I'll be able to believe you. Or do you think global warming is a scam to pretty much put money in people's pockets, to tax businesses, to make an excuse to offshore business and the so-called CO2 emission to China and India rather than here in the States? Whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
If you're going to get the money, you got to support their position. Therefore, 97% of the scientific reports published support global warming. Why? Because those are the ones the government pays for, and that's where the money is.